Welcome into episode 76 of the Level Flight podcast. My name is Connor. I've got Elliot with me here today, and we've got a guest here who's been on the podcast many times. Jacob Stoller from the Hockey News. Jacob, how you doing?
Doing great. Am I friend of the show territory now, or still
Yes.
acquaintances? Unreal.
Yeah.
Fired
Good
up.
friend of the show, Jacob
Sweet.
Stoller. Elliot, how you doing?
I'm good. Been a little bit of a busy morning, but kind of slowing down now. Excited for the game that will be tonight because we are recording this before the game.
Yes, good on you for mentioning that. We're recording this at 3:30 Monday. Toffoli and Miller are making their Jets debuts tonight. But yeah, before we see them actually play in a Jets jersey, let's just speculate on how they look in a Jets jersey. That's the fun part, right? Jacob covers almost every single team for the Hockey News in the NHL. We're going to take more of a national look on what teams did on the deadline later on in the episode, but obviously we're a Jets podcast. We're going to start with the Jets' biggest move on Friday morning. Jacob, what was your initial reaction to the Tyler Toffoli trade? He's coming over for a 2025 second and a 2024 third. What was your initial take when you saw that notification on your phone?
My initial take was like, that's it. Like in terms of the acquisition, like what it cost, I was like, are you serious? And then 50% retained. I was like, that seems insanely low. I mean, just relative to what the prices were and just how much of a good player I think Toffoli is. So that was my initial reaction. Second, it was, okay, wait, this is a great idea. Like this is a perfect personnel fit. Toffoli, he's on pace for a second straight 30-plus goal season. Not the fastest player. He has heavier boots. But when he was in New Jersey this season, he's playing with Jack Hughes and on a team that's like one of the best rush teams in the regular season this year. And Toffoli's IQ and his ability to find open ice and whatnot and open up and penetrate seams and lanes, it helped him be one of the best rush shooters in the league. And I think that when you think about it, like Nikolai Ehlers, for example, somebody that, maybe he doesn't have as speed as Ehlers, but the fact that he can kind of play with guys like him that are lightning fast and have that sort of make or break ability, that's definitely positive. But I think that Toffoli's a perfect deadline addition. Stanley Cup pedigree. He's been a top scorer in this league for years. He's very good in all three zones of the ice, very good stick, a very smart player. And I think that, for a Jets team that needs as much insurance as they can possibly get, Toffoli's the perfect ad. You can, if worse comes to worse, you isolate him. If he, for whatever reason, doesn't fit in, you can still get a great middle six scorer there. If it's the best case scenario, you've got a top line winger when he's at his best. Maybe not, elite first line, but, really good second line territory. I thought it was a great deal, and I still do. And I think that the Jets made the perfect trade in doing draft capital as opposed to prospects. And yeah, I mean, from the onset, it seems like a perfect match.
So we talked Toffoli now, and the Jets weren't done on the phone with New Jersey. Obviously, a couple hours later, there was the talk that maybe they swing big. They still have the Montreal second. They still haven't traded any prospects. And then it comes out towards the end of the deadline. I think it was just after the clock had hit zero that they trade for Colin Miller. I'm actually really interested in what your opinion is on the Colin Miller deal and kind of what does he really bring to this lineup?
Before we get to that, and I don't mean to railroad it, what do you guys make of the whole? You said about swinging big. Chevy said in his presser about how he offered 2 first-round picks. Right. I don't know if do we know this for sure? Did he say that was this deadline, or was he talking?
No.
This is in general.
Previous.
He said
in the past.
I think the exact quote was like, there was one time or there was one deadline where I offered 2 first-round picks. People were trying to guess.
Yeah,
I don't know. The only guess that I saw, because I was looking for people guessing, the only guess I saw, and I can't remember who it was, someone threw out Gavrikov, because I know that was his price at one point, but even then I don't see Chevy would have been in on Gavrikov. That doesn't make any sense.
But that's the only game. Provorov or Chychrun? They Provorov a couple years ago. I don't know.
A lot of the people that were thrown out, though, like people are guessing, and I'm like, okay, maybe the team loves their defenseman, but why wouldn't they trade them for 2-1s? Like, if Jacob Chychrun was available and the Coyotes had 2-1s come across their desk, why aren't they jumping at that? And then they waited and traded him for a 1 to Ottawa.
It was
I would have to think so too.
Yeah,
probably.
So, sorry, Elliot, for railroading that. I just needed
okay.
An outlet. But
no, that's
Colin
okay.
Miller,
yeah,
I think Colin Miller is a great ad. Now, I think that expectations should be tempered. I think that a lot of people are looking at his analytics and all this stuff, which is great, but he was on New Jersey's pair. third pair this season, did well. And throughout his career, the thing with Colin Miller, in my opinion, is he's always been a great third pairing guy, or like, a prototypical 5. But in top 4, like as a number 3 or number 4 in your team, you're probably not the happiest with him there. Like that sweet spot is kind of getting him in that bottom pair deployment. Rick Bowness talked about this morning when I was at the presser, and Connor was as well, about how his shot, like you got to respect that shot. He's got a really heavy shot. And he also has like quite a bit of playoff experience himself. I think that at the very least, what you're getting is not only are you getting somebody that can move the puck on that third pair and kind of push pace and maybe provide some shots on goal, but you're also low-key getting some Neil Pionk insurance. Like I think that what this move is doing is you're protecting yourself in the case that Pionk struggles or that he can't handle these big matchups. And then at that point, it's like, you know what? Let's try this guy here, right? You're trying. It's another thing to just throw at an opponent. I don't think Nate Schmidt's really the answer there. And I also think that a guy like Sandberg or Dylan, okay, either of those guys, their D partner needs to be a puck mover, right? So Dylan and Pionk, let's say they say together, Sandberg, and then it's like Schmidt. And Schmidt was a great puck mover in his prime, even a couple of years ago. But as we all know, he's slowed down. So I think Colin Miller's going to add a great layer in that sense. He does have some penalty kill experience, although it was more of a second pairing usage in New Jersey. This morning, he was on the second power play unit. Not overly surprising given the shot that we kind of talked about. But yeah, I think it just gives the Jets another option, and it's a much better, this is a definitive upgrade over a Schmidt, where it's like some of the talk was a depth defenseman, a veteran defenseman. And Colin Miller is a veteran defenseman, but he's also a pretty good one, right? Like this isn't just another guy that's in the Stanley Schmidt rotation or Capo Bianco. Like, he's not really just a depth guy there. This is a definitive in your lineup player. And as we saw with the Jets last year, even this year, if they lose Josh Morrissey, you can't recover from that, right? But
no,
you're looking at a lineup where it's like it's kind of Josh Morrissey, and then everyone else is like a by committee approach. And I think that Colin Miller is a really solid add to that makeup. That's my 2 cents on it. Were you guys amped when it happened?
I mean, my take, I'll go first, Elliot. My take first was that the 2026 4th round pick, like that's not even real. That's not a real pick. Like that's like 3 years from now.
That's
a 4th round pick,
franchise mode. Just like,
exactly. Yeah. When you offer like 5 7th round picks,
exactly,
and you get like
it becomes
Connor McDavid. Yeah. Yeah. No, but that's exactly it. It just doesn't even feel like a real. Feels like they just brought Colin Miller in for free. And my take also was that if someone were to get hurt, again, Josh Morrissey can't recover from that. They're not swinging big. They're not getting a Jacob Chikrin and trying to ensure if Josh Morrissey was getting hurt. But if Dylan DeMello got hurt, this is kind of insurance there. If Nate Schmidt, he's going to be an upgrade on the third pairing, Neil Pionk insurance, like you said. And if anyone were to get hurt, he's an upgrade coming into the lineup over a Logan Stanley at the absolute minimum. That's if they kept Nate Schmidt in the lineup and Miller was the press box guy.
No chance.
Miller's now on the third pairing, going to make his debut tonight with Sandberg. And I'd expect Schmidt to be the press box guy. But then again, Schmidt coming in the playoffs is an upgrade over Stanley coming in the playoffs. So this just gives you more depth. There's like an old saying that you need 10 defensemen in the playoffs. I don't buy into that, but I think you need at least like 7 and a quality number 7 or a quality number 8.
Yeah.
And this ensures that they are okay in the event of a non-Josh Morrissey injury. Elliot, what was your thoughts?
Just to continue your quote there about having 10 defensemen, I believe it was actually Kevin Cheveldayoff at the presser made that.
Well, everyone says it.
And then mentioned Cal Capobianco as well. So, I mean, I think that's all they're trying to do. They're trying to add layers to everybody, to every position group as they can, so that if somebody goes down, it's next man up. And like you said, Jacob, it's kind of like this next man up mentality that the Jets have built, and then they're enforcing that by bringing players in. My thought kind of just was, okay, he's a depth guy. I was hoping that, and obviously I had no idea until this morning, I was kind of hoping that he was going to be that number 6, because obviously Nate Schmidt has had his ups and downs this year. He's looked like old Nate Schmidt at times. Sometimes he's looked like he's started to regress. And then obviously I just don't think Logan Stanley brings enough to the lineup. And I'm just glad that the Jets addressed that they needed at least a number 6. And they went out and got somebody that is good enough to be a 6. Or if somebody else, other than obviously Josh Morrissey, gets hurt, they can kind of reshuffle the lineup, and Miller still isn't out of his realm, hopefully.
And they got him for a fake pick. Like I
Fake
said,
pick,
it's just not
Well,
even
and
real. Fake.
speaking of the picks, though, it's funny because like the fact that they kept their second this year, like the one they got in the Dubois deal, that's going to be a high second. So the fact that they kept that, I think, is also something they deserve credit for. And they spread out the picks that they traded, so they've got a pretty healthy, boatload of assets that they still have, and that's important, especially for the Jets in the way that they develop their cores, drafting, developing. So that's also something to mention. But further to what you were saying, Elliot, it's like, the difference with Colin Miller is, you ideally want him as a 5 or like a really good 5 or 6. But if an injury does happen, him over a Nate Schmidt or any of those kind of guys that if you have to step in a top 4 role, I think there's no doubt that move is centered or geared towards getting that kind of guy in there and having that sort of confidence that he can sort of carry the load and make sure things that continue as they usually would be. The one thing I kind of wonder about it is when people were saying they wanted a big swing, Chychrun's the plausible
Chychrun,
candidate, but I don't think this team needs Jacob Chychrun. Like Colin Miller, I'm not saying Colin Miller is better than Jacob Chychrun. That's a whole different discussion. Look at the Jets system. What they want from their defensemen. They want guys that can move the puck. Some of them aren't as good as maybe they'd want them to be, but they want to be, defender. They wanted them to defend, protect the house, but then be able to drive play and get shots on net. Colin Miller fits that mold. Chychrun is not as complete of a player as people think. So let's get that out there, guys. Like that is not, and that's why I don't think, not that it matters, we're speculating, but that's why I don't think that Chevy is offering 2 first-round picks for Jacob Chychrun. Like that's where it's like, I can't be. So that's my thinking of it. And I think that any gripes you have with the decor, that's not going to get resolved till the summer. So in terms of what they have now, I think this is the best possible move they could have made.
Yeah, I agree. And it's a cheap addition. He's like 1.8 million on the cap, pending UFA. I don't know if they'll want to bring him back as a depth guy, but you brought up the picks, and they don't have their 1 this year. They have their 1 next year, traded away their 2 next year for Toffoli. But having that 1 next year, and likely, I deem it likely that Monahan comes back next year if they re-sign him, that will really pay off on that first round pick that they traded away this year. I don't know if I deem it likely. I might retract that. I don't know what the Monahan UFA situation is, but the Jets aren't worried about that because they got him for the playoff push. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
I do want to ask about the playoff push, Jacob. After these 2 deals, assuming Gabriel Velarde comes back at some point, where do you think the Jets stack up in the West? A lot of teams added at the deadline. The Jets obviously just got smoked by Vancouver 5-0 on the second night of a back-to-back, kind of their worst game of the season for sure. But where do you see them stacking up against like a Vegas, Edmonton, the contenders in the Western Conference after deadline day on Friday?
Yeah, I think, frankly, I think the Jets can take anyone. I think that they are able to compete with anyone in the West. The team, though, that gives me the most worry for them would be Dallas. I think that Dallas is a well-oiled, built, top-to-bottom machine. Yeah, their goaltending hasn't been as good as you'd like this year, and I say that as a Jake Ottinger fantasy owner. But,
there you go.
The reality is this. We saw it with Bobrovsky last year. Elite goaltenders are able to turn it on the playoffs. Like the playoffs is a new season. Clock starts over at 0, and it's like you want a Jake Ottinger in your net. So I wouldn't even be concerned about that. In doing the Tanev deal, they are pretty stacked from top to bottom. Their 5 and 6 D are pretty solid for, especially when you add Tanev into your 4 right D hole. Like that's just perfect. I love their roster, and that's a team where the reason it gives me such worry is because they can come at you in so many waves. And the Jets, on paper, have like a great deal of depth. I haven't seen this all together, and I think because we know with this team, line deployment and configuration is important, and with any team. So I don't know yet, but what we do know definitively is Dallas has a really stacked top 4 lines, and they have solid decors and goaltending. So that's the worry there. I think Colorado isn't as scary as many people think. Vancouver, it would sound silly to say that I'm not sold on them just because it's like, oh, come on, like look what they're doing. But I don't know. They don't really have the experience, and I think that does matter. So I don't know. I think I would side with the Jets on that one. But Vegas, man. Like Vegas and Edmonton.
If Stone
are
comes back.
Yeah, like if Stone comes back, even like I just think Vegas is a scary team. Like you have a roster pretty much identical to last year's Cup contender, Plus, you have an Aiden Hill that is carried over that play. Then you make
Yeah.
those additions you've made, and like Hannafin and Hurd, like those are big time ads. And it's like,
Mantha.
okay, like Mantha, yeah, like
Mhm.
are you going to bet against them? Like, no one wants to play the Knights in round one. Like, that is a scary one. And then I also think that people, as much as they didn't maybe handle the deadline the best, man, I think the Oilers are very legit. I think that there is so much. When I say pressure, I don't mean in a negative context. Like, there's a lot of urgency in that core, realizing what's at stake. Draisaitl's eligible for extension July 1. McDavid the year after that. Like, this could be one last dance type of vibe. So I think if anyone is the most scary, it would be Edmonton and Vegas in terms of threatening the Jets. I think they can take. Dallas, Edmonton, and Vegas are probably the scariest ones. I think that I could see. I don't know. I don't know if I would pick the Jets in either of those series. I'll be honest. Like it's really tough, and that's not even a slight against the Jets. Just that the West is loaded the way that the East was last year.
I feel like anyone could come out of the West, given the fact that even everyone added at the deadline. Like it's such a frenzy. And Dallas, I mean, they added Chris Tanev. That was their ad, but they also added Logan Stankoven into the mix, who is tearing it up. And yeah, he's small, whatever. He's producing at a crazy rate, and he's going to produce for them down the stretch. People, sorry, I threw that comment out there. People will shrug it off, be like, "Oh, he's small. Let's see him do it in the playoffs." He'll probably do it in the playoffs too. He's pretty freaking good player. So
yeah, he's very good.
Yeah, very worried about Dallas personally. Elliot, who worries you the most in the West?
Probably Dallas. They're the only team this year that I think the Jets have played, at least in regular season schedule, where we've seen them go into a matchup where the Jets are on a roll going into the game.
Yep.
And then they get smoked by Dallas. Everybody, like, they've taken care of Colorado. They've competed against Edmonton. I'm going to excuse the 5-0 loss to the Canucks because it was the second night of a back-to-back, and it seemed like most of the guys were still sick and trying to get through that. And they took care of Vancouver in the first matchup, right?
Yeah.
So I feel okay with them against almost anybody else other than Dallas. I think Vegas, I'm kind of on the fence because I know that their roster's loaded, but also if you look at their recent form, they've kind of been reeling, right? And they're going to probably have to use a lot of their gas left in their tank just to make sure they make the playoffs. If I'm not mistaken, they're in WC2, correct?
Yeah,
at the moment,
second wildcard spot.
Yeah, so they need to make sure that there's nobody that catches up behind them and they stay in front of everybody. So I think if my worry would be is if they get out of round one, because if they get to round one, they still have enough gas left. Then if they get out of round one, well, you would have to look around that locker room and everyone's probably jumping for joy, right? And so then they're just running on adrenaline at that point. And then you have no idea. Yeah.
They've been there before. Yeah.
I wouldn't be too worried if they essentially run out of gas and then you see in the first round, like whoever they play is
I would agree.
Playing them in game 1 or 2. And then you go, okay, they're probably dead in the water here. But yeah, if they win game 1 or 2 in that first round series, I go, okay, well, they might go on another run.
Well, you bring up the fact that Vegas is in a second wildcard spot, and Jets fans will hate to hear that because the Jets are, fighting for the 1 seed. You work hard all season long to get the 1 seed, and then your prize is Vegas in the first round. And Mark Stone is healthy all of a sudden, and it's just that could go south very quickly on your season. Last thing I want to throw out before break, or sorry, go ahead, Jacob.
Sorry, I was gonna say of the three teams though, Edmonton, Dallas, Vegas, I would say the one that I would be the least worried about would be Vegas. If that makes any sense because of what Elliot kind of isolated, where it's like I could definitely see a situation where they run out of gas or that the hype train we've created, it just isn't going to carry over this year. That's what I would say. But I think Edmonton and Dallas are like in a league of their own of like, oh God, like this could get bad.
Yeah.
And we didn't really talk about them, but the reason I'd be scared about Colorado, I think they have depth issues that they really did address at the deadline, but and goaltending issues, which they didn't address. But the reason I'd be scared about them is because if the Jets special teams issues come back for a week, they're done. They're done because Colorado's power play isn't going to struggle.
Lethal.
And and if the Jets power play struggles and you're losing the special teams battle 2-0 every game, you're screwed. I don't care how good you play at 5-on-5. 100%. Colorado will be good enough.
But I also think that's just quickly to add, I think
Yeah.
that's also why the Toffoli trade also has that other element to it. I think the Jets have decided that instead of having that kind of like, okay, which special teams do we kind of pick instead? Let's go with the power play and make sure that is solidified.
Yeah, I hope Velarde comes back and is healthy, because when they were running the power play through him, it just looked different and the results were there. So let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the rest of the deals that were made on deadline day. We kind of touched on them there, but we want to throw out some winners and losers. So we're going to do that, especially with the West. A lot of teams added, and in the East for that matter. So let's hear a word from DraftKings, and we'll be right back. We've got Jacob Stoller from the Hockey News here with us on episode 76.
We know hockey games move fast, but with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, you can score faster than anything happening on the ice. This week, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app with code THPN. New customers bet $5 on the NHL and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code THPN. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, licensee partner Golden Nugget Lake Charles. 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction, void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/hockey for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. NHL and the NHL Shield are registered trademarks of the National Hockey League. Copyright NHL 2024, all rights reserved.
And welcome back into episode 76 of the Level Flight podcast. Like we said before, a lot of moves were made on deadline day. Elliot, why don't you tee this one up? Which one do you want to ask Jacob about first?
We were just talking about Vegas, so we might as well go with the Tomas Hertl deal. Jacob, what are your thoughts? Like you mentioned, you said you liked Hertl to Vegas. What intrigues you about his acquisition?
I think this is a home run for Vegas. You have taken a player that after 2 straight 60-plus point seasons, he's on pace for like 58 points this year on a horrible Sharks team. For my money, a exceptional top 6 winger, power forward. He plays center, wing, a heavy game, a skilled game. Someone that you want to have in these playoff type games. Don't worry about the future of the contract. They'll figure that out. Don't worry about that. The next 3-4 years, or let's just say 3 years. Okay, the next 3 runs, you're getting a big time addition and a player that so desperately wants to be in the playoffs after what he's enduring in San Jose. Love it. I'm intrigued by the idea that, as I said, he's so versatile. Like Hertl, they can make him, he can be effective in a variety of different ways. This isn't a guy that needs to be an X spot or Y spot to succeed. Vegas has so many intriguing players up front. They can figure out mix and match and get different combos. So I think there's a higher probability that he does work out there because of that versatility. This deal to me is a robbery for Vegas. I was saying this to Connor today. Like I actually think this is one of the worst deals in the modern cap era, because what San Jose has done here, I'm so serious. You have you have given up your final retention spot to do a division, to do San Jose or to do Vegas a massive favor for the next 8 years. And the return you get is a late first round pick and a B- prospect. Put it this way, with everything but David Edstrom, he's on an A+ prospect. Okay, so let's say a B prospect, and you somehow you give away 2/3, which I don't even get how that happened.
Yeah,
what scale are we balancing? I'm shocked. That is one of the worst mismanagements of the salary cap that we have ever seen. Salary cap is an asset if you use it as such. You know what? If you want to trade the Carlson deal because you have to, I get that. Fine. You found your way there. You got some returns. You mainly want to clear up space. The Burns one, it's aged bad, but okay, I can see it. You got one retention spot left for the next couple of years. To use it on a Hertl there makes 0 sense to me. And here's the case in point. A report came out that they had a deal for Barabanov, but they could not move him because they couldn't retain salary. They were at the point, apparently, that they were almost giving away for free. to do right by the guy. They could not find a landing spot. In a tight cap system like the NHL, you are giving away these massive chip. And I still think like the Burns and Carlson, which I get it, but still it's kind of like, okay, but now you have one retention spot. To give that away, San Jose cannot collect assets, whether it's by brokering deals, whether it's by retaining a guy they have and flipping them. They've nullified that. So at the deadline now with selling, it's so much harder. And so there's long-term repercussions here. And why couldn't you have done this at the draft? Like, why now? I do
a guy
not
with 6 years
understand
of term, it like at the deadline
Beyond me.
feels interesting. Yeah.
I can't understand retaining. It's not even the dollar amount. I think 17% of the deal is still, even with the cap rising, like unnecessary. The last time we saw this was with Phil Kessel, and then everyone's kind of been like, you know what, this is not smart. People have stopped it. But again, the term, like 6 years, the next after this year, or 7, including this year, you are paying a portion of Tomas Hertl's salary for a late first round pick and David Edstrom. That is ludicrous. Genuinely.
And
I do not understand it.
Yeah. And I remember Brian and I were talking about this deal the day the Toffoli deal was made. And I originally was like kind of on the fence about it because Tomas Hertl, like, okay, he's a top 6 guy. Jacob brings up the versatility. He is hurt this year, but he's going to be coming back soon. And he's 30. I was like 6 years, like you're tied into that. Like, what if, he plays a heavy style? I don't know about this. And then this morning, Jacob basically said what he just said on the podcast to me about the retention slot. And that kind of opened my mind up to like, wow, yeah, San Jose is just kind of doing San Jose things. Elliot, I want to start with you on the next one. The Avs, we talked about them. They trade for Sean Walker, and then they flip Bowen Byram for Casey Middlestat, 1-for-1, simple hockey trade. I kind of talked about the Avs before break there, just how I'm scared about them in the playoffs. I'm just a paranoid guy. But what are your thoughts on the Avs and kind of flipping Byram there? That was a shocker.
Yeah, like when I'm seeing there, I was at work at the time. I'm checking my phone and I see that they trade for Sean Walker, and I went, "Oh, okay, well that's interesting." Like Decor is like one of their strongest assets, so I was intrigued to see what they were going to do with that. And then obviously, I don't know or watch as much hockey as I probably should. So when they traded Byram for Middlestat, I had to obviously look and go, wait, I know Bowen Byram as like this crazy great offensive defenseman. Like, why would they do that? And then obviously I have to look into the numbers and I look and go, oh, okay. So he's not been good since he's been struggling. And so I think for the Avs, this is like, honestly, personally, I think this is great asset management. You trade for a guy on a cheaper deal, right? Mm-hmm. And then you trade Byram, who's already on a bigger contract, for a forward, which you're trading one of your strengths away to help in a depth slot. I think it's a great move. I don't see why there's really any negative to it, unless like other than let's say Middlestat doesn't play well and Bowen Byram decides that with Buffalo he's God again. I don't know, but he's a top pairing guy. But even then, if you're if you're the Avs, you just kind of take it and leave it and go, well, that sucks because you created space for future years and you created space for the now, and they just kept wanting to add. So I personally think it was a good deal. You have to obviously do a little bit more tinkering and kind of look at really what the Avs were looking at. But other than that, I think the Jet. Oh my God, I'm saying all these random teams. I'm speaking
so many
too quickly.
Teams in the West.
So many teams
in the West.
The Avs are, I think, to say the Jets are going to make the Jets run for their money here, and kind of like they're making everybody else, and obviously the Jets included. It's an arms race, right? And so that's what the Avs were thinking. You trade away one of your more premium available assets because. Obviously, Nathan McKinnon is your most premium asset, but you're not getting rid of him, obviously. So you kind of go down the list and you go, okay, well, we need to give up somebody here to go make something else better. And unfortunately, Byram was the sacrifice.
Yeah. And I think anytime you can acquire a 25-year-old, he is like entering his prime center. I think that's a great move. Jacob, what did you see from Buffalo's perspective here, going out and getting Bowen Byram? Obviously, he struggled for a bit now. The Avs aren't going to wait around for him to figure his game out while they're contending for a Stanley Cup. So what do you see from Buffalo here?
Yeah, in my viewpoint, Sabres GM Kevin Adams is just kind of reconfiguring the core. They have a lot of forward pieces there. Your top two centers are going to be Tage and Dylan Cousins, Tage Thompson, Dylan Cousins. So you got that kind of locked in. You got a bunch of wingers there. Someone had to go eventually, right? You've got Power and Dahlin, and then it's like, and Samuelson. And then it's like, okay, those are all lefties, whatever. Like, I get the left-right thing, but it's the opportunity to add a Bowen Byram is interesting because seeing him play at the level that he did it in the Stanley Cup playoffs at such a young age, you can't, like, it's pretty fantastic. You can't really find that on the street. The struggles he's had over the last little bit, he's had health issues and whatnot, and it's been a really tough go for him. He wasn't going to figure it out in Colorado. Just wasn't. I'm not saying he will in Buffalo. We don't know. But I think that Buffalo forces him the opportunity to be on a team that has a different timeline than Colorado. Colorado's a contender. Buffalo, I mean, they're going to hopefully try to make the playoffs next year, but it's just not the same in terms of expectations. We never really know with them. But I think that it's just a better fit for him. And for Buffalo, there's also, such as reconfiguring the lineup by position at this point in the rebuild is smart. You've also go for value. And I think that there's a high upside opportunity here. Who knows if Byram's there forever? Who knows if Samuelson's there forever? But I think that from a value perspective and the depth chart they have, it's a great deal. And I actually love it for both sides. And I agree with everything you guys said about Colorado.
And yeah, I 100% agree on Buffalo's perspective there. Sorry, kind of reshifting their contention window, if that even exists in Buffalo. But I like it. Gensel to Carolina. This is the last deal I want to ask about. Going to get both of your thoughts because it seemed like Twitter was kind of split, or not split, actually. It was heavily on the Carolina wins by a landslide on this deal. But then I saw a few people come out saying, well, actually, this isn't too bad from Pittsburgh's perspective. Jacob, how did you see that Jake Gensel deal? Went down Thursday night, I believe. Did you think it was a fleece like much of Twitter thought, or did you think this one was a little bit more fair than maybe everyone's giving it credit for?
My thing is I just don't get how there wasn't like a first guaranteed in there. Like that's the part that I'm not understanding, how it wasn't like a first round pick, or at least that the condition was easier to hit. Like
win a round.
Or
win 2 rounds. Yeah.
Like
win the Stanley Cup.
Or is it win or it's gonna make the cup?
I thought it was win the cup. I might be mistaken, but it definitely has something to do with the cup finals.
Yeah, like that's
either be in it or win it.
Kudos to the Hurricanes who continue to outsmart everyone. But I think, is it a fleecing? I mean, it puzzled me. None of those prospects really stand out from somebody that doesn't know each of them too well. I'm just going off of what, much smarter people than me at the Hockey News, like Ryan Kennedy, our prospect expert and editor-in-chief, how we've ranked them in Future Watch, our issue. So, from that perspective, it's kind of puzzling, but I think the biggest issue. So, okay, from one perspective, Dubas is clearly trying to restock a very skinny pipeline. Okay.
Yeah.
I get it. I do get that. You get the pick, which I wish was guaranteed, but it's not, whatever. And then I think the problem with the bunting part is like clearly Dubas likes bunting, but to me, it's almost like, and I don't know how, and maybe this is the case and I'm not reading it right, but it's almost like, okay, I would have thought you'd get a guaranteed first in the sense of you may like bunting, but you're taking on a pretty sizable cap hit there. Like there is a cap dump element to it too. Whereas I think from what the return is, I would assume that Dubas approach it like we want Mike Bunting in it. I think that he overplayed his hand there. And I think that's where the return gets dicey. My only thing is I think that it should have been a guaranteed first. That's what I'll say.
Okay. Yeah. Elliot, your quick thoughts on that deal?
Yeah, just quick thoughts. I mean, there were weird conditions all over this deadline. It was like, well, if there was one there. Was it Vegas that was if we don't use it, then it's this year. What kind of condition is that? So you're just giving somebody else the opportunity to use another pick. Either way.
Yeah.
I think this is an interesting deal. Like Jacob said, for some reason, Kyle Dubas really likes Michael Bunting. Like I know he brought him in Toronto. But like he was also on the line with like Matthews and I think it was somebody else. I think it was like Matthews, Marner. Yeah, it was Matthews, Marner, and Bunting. Well, of course, Michael Bunting is going to look fantastic next to one of the best centers in the world and a top winger. But I mean, the rest of the return is kind of like it is what it is. Like,
Yeah.
obviously, I like this from Carolina's perspective. Connor, you've mentioned this a couple times where this is a guy who can score, and he's a more of a precision shooter than what the Carolina Hurricanes like to do, and just kind of, hey, here's a puck, we're going to throw it on net sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I think that he fits a need for them to actually put the puck into the net.
Mhm.
And I think the biggest thing with I'm kind of on the fence too, like Jacob, where I get you're trying to restock the cupboards, but you also have an old core and you've
Yeah.
got a bunch of guys that want to keep trying to win. So it's either you need
He's in
to
a terrible spot.
He's
in a
Dubas is in a terrible spot.
Yeah.
You have Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, and we're gonna say Chris Letang, where they all want to, and Carlson, where you want to win, but you're not in the position to with the rest of the roster. So what do you do? And you know that Sidney Crosby is breathing down your neck, telling you, "I need a contender. Like, I want to try to win one more before I go out."
Yeah.
And it is the question then is, and I've seen this float around a little bit. Is it then in that point is that Sidney Crosby still in Pittsburgh to win that cup, right?
Yeah.
And you're Dubas, and you got to make that decision.
If I could add one thing, I will say I think that, and what makes the deal tricky, like Dubas, maybe the reason the return is this way, it's because he's sort of caught between a rock and a hard place. And I think that the reality is he's trying to be competitive while restocking the cupboards and getting more trade ammo and potential guys that could contribute on ELCs. I get that. I think Mike Bunting actually helps the Pittsburgh Penguins win games.
Mhm.
Like, I think, and I'll tell you why. Like, I saw Pittsburgh live once this year when they were in Winnipeg, and then watched them on TV quite often this year because it's kind of like it's like a car crash. Can't look away. Like, you kind of like, what's going on here? Like,
Yeah.
like what is happening?
Yeah.
They are in desperate need of life. Like, they need some like rah. Like, they need a guy like a Mike Bunting that is a tremendous forechecker. I think in Carolina just wasn't really a fit for a lot of reasons. Was probably overpaid a little bit, whatever. But one thing I'll give Mike Bunting credit for, and the reason Dubas was attracted to him and signed him out of Arizona and whatnot, is his ability to not only score goals in the greasy area, but to retrieve pucks on the forecheck. That's what allows him to play with good players and score points. Like, kind of imagine like how Zach Hyman. Okay, like,
I was just about to say a Zach
now
Hyman
Hyman's
light.
a 50 goal
Yeah.
scorer, so I didn't even know if it
Yeah.
applies, which is insane.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
Zach Hyman, the advantage of Zach Hyman was he was like that quote unquote digger, right? He goes in there and he's digging pucks out, keeping possession. And the reason that really fits for the Penguins is Sidney Crosby is like a elite fourth line grinder. Like, Sidney Crosby is a cycle beast. He plays off the wall. That's where he's doing the dirty work and keeping possession. A guy like Bunting to play with that, like, that's like a match made in heaven in a lot of ways. So
Yeah.
I like that. My only thing is I just would have wished to get a guaranteed first. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Carolina walks out of this with genuinely zero risk. We make we make the cup finals. Of course, we'll get a first. And you guys pan out, whatever. We have no room for these prospects.
Yeah.
These are like Scott Wheeler's athletic prospect ranking. These guys were from 7 downward,
Yeah.
right? So these guys aren't in the immediate future, and they have a younger core too, comparatively. So, and then you dump like the Bunting salary. I think it's Carolina does a great job from their end. I think Dubas did the best he could. That's all. I'll say.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's a good place to leave it. I am gonna clip you, Jacob, and use some AI editing and make it sound like you called Crosby a fourth line player. I'm definitely gonna do that.
Hey, it's fine. I set myself up for that.
Crosby's a fourth line grinder at his
you're
absolute peak. Yeah.
I feel like I butchered the way that somebody much smarter than me and better at communicating said what I tried to say there, but probably better. But
He's like the greatest grinder of all time. I think I've heard that take.
Yeah, but even then,
Yeah.
I think like that's just like
That's
way to put it.
It sounds like he's obviously way better than that. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, he plays like a grinder. Gosh,
Yes.
you're gonna ruin my
sure.
internet life.
yeah. Have fun in your Twitter mentions the next couple days.
Thanks, Connor.
On the way out, I want to get a really quick post-deadline Cup Finals pick. My Cup Finals pick before the year was Oilers Devils, so that's going horribly. I guess for the Oilers, maybe not, but the Devils are done. They literally just traded Tyler Toffoli to the Jets, so they're done. But I'll defer to Jacob first on this one. He's the guest. I'll let him go ahead. What is your post-deadline Stanley Cup Finals matchup? You don't, if you want to pick a winner, go for it. But
I think Florida wins the Cup.
Okay.
And the reason I think they win the Cup, and I think they face Dallas. Let's just say, because I don't know, I love Dallas. I'm not going to bet against them. Last year, the advantage Vegas had was that Florida came into that Stanley Cup final battered and
Beat
bruised.
up. Yeah.
The East last year was insane. And now this year the West is loading up. So whoever comes out of the West is going to be exhausted. I think Florida, I don't think they're going to coast through the East, but I think that they're not going to be in as tight or as physical series, whatever it may be. They're going to another series with Carolina could be pretty exhausting. Don't get me wrong. But I think Florida learned a lot from last year. They've been buzzing since like January 1st. They're built to win. I love the Tarasenko edition. I'm going to go with the Panthers. I think that Dallas runner is up again. Poor Jamie Benn. God bless that guy's soul. And that's my pick. What do you think, Elliot?
Okay.
I had Dallas 2 in the West. So, and
originally,
I can't remember what my pick was at the beginning of the season. We'd have to go back and check, but post deadline, I still think it's Dallas. Like, I've been pretty set on them being in the West. I think the Jets maybe make the Western Conference final, depending on how the tree structures. It's hard to pick against Florida, and I don't know. I've been kind of between Florida, and I think the Rangers are a sneaky pick for me. I think they might still have some gas left, but it's really hard to not pick Florida and Dallas, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, those are definitely the favorites, I'd say.
Yeah,
maybe in the West, I don't know if Dallas would be the favorite. Again, it's a crapshoot. So if you're getting value on any team, take it, because they could probably go. I think I don't want to be okay in the East. I'm gonna switch it up. Florida's obviously the favorite, and I honestly, in the back, like deep down, I think Florida's better. But I'm gonna choose the Carolina Hurricanes because I love, and I said it when they made these acquisition, I love the Gensel acquisition for them. I feel like they've been missing a pure goal scorer for a long time.
Yeah,
Aho's more of that facilitator. Jarvis is a pest. Svechnikov's a big modern day power forward. I think they needed a pure scorer. I would have liked to see them get to Foley or Gensel. They got Gensel. So I'm going to go Carolina to make the finals. And then they'd have to cough up that first round pick. But I think in the West, I don't know. I'll say Dallas. I don't have the stones to say Winnipeg. But like, honestly,
sorry, what about Edmonton?
Edmonton, I don't know.
You have an
I feel
opportunity
like
to look smart for your pick at the beginning of the year. You have a chance to look like you are
right. True,
intelligent, and you are punting on it.
I am because
4th and inches inside your own the opponent's end.
I don't. Fine, yeah. Now I don't trust their defense. I don't trust Stuart Skinner in a playoff series. If the Western Conference Finals was Jets Oilers, I would pick Jets 100. Like Hellebuck versus Skinner. Like I know you have McDavid and like I just feel like goaltending is the ultimate equalizer, and I can't pick a Colorado or an Edmonton.
Connor McDavid play?
I've watched Connor McDavid play. I also watched the Jets sweep the Oilers when Connor McDavid played all 4 games.
Yep, that's true.
But I'm just saying. I think goaltending plays a huge role in the playoffs, and I think that's why Colorado, Edmonton, those teams are out for me. Yes, I have the chance to look smart, but you know what? I'll say
Stanley Cup final.
I'm just fencing this. I'm just fencing this completely. I haven't even given a team yet. I'll say Dallas, Carolina. Carolina wins.
Ooh. I think the only Stanley Cup final I don't want to see is the one that has been floated around Twitter lately, which is Florida, Winnipeg. That's like the nightmare. Yeah, that would be great.
So awesome.
What are you talking about? That'd be unbelievable. Like
that would be unbelievable.
That would be straight torture, because as soon as they go up one game in the series, like if they literally won game 1, I'd throw my hands up and say, "Yep, that's it. All right, this is like the worst nightmare of all time."
That would suck for the Jets though, because like you imagine playing against a guy that knows your team so well.
Yeah,
like knows your players inside and out. Like that is the worst. Like that is the last team you want to play in the Cup final. The absolute last.
Yeah.
You also know it wouldn't be good for TV ratings, but
yeah, true.
Whatever. TV ratings. I could care less about TV ratings. If the Jets ever made a finals, TV ratings would be in the gutter. And let's be honest, if people tuned into last year's Stanley Cup finals, they didn't come away satisfied. It was garbage.
Yeah, that's true.
Vegas rolled through Florida. Like it was.
Yeah,
it wasn't. No,
totally.
So that's why people say like, oh, Rangers, Oilers. Yeah, tons of people are going to tune into that, but
it's probably not going to be.
I guess that would actually be pretty fun.
Wait,
I think that'd
wasn't last year's Stanley Cup viewed a lot, or am I wrong?
I thought it was,
but those are two non-traditional markets.
Right. And everyone who watched was probably like, what the hell was this? Like Vegas won the cup 9-1 or 9-2, whatever that game was.
Yeah,
Like,
that's true. Yeah.
I don't know.
That was
But
like a
yes, I agree. I think people will tune in regardless.
Yeah.
And then, you bring up Florida and Vegas, and it was very highly watched. I think
I
that's
think Winnipeg, Florida would be the best Stanley Cup final you could ever manifest.
That would be so sick.
Be
That would be
elite.
so sick.
I
Yeah.
disagree with you,
Yeah.
Elliot.
That's okay. Well, the ultimate gauntlet would be if we had to play like Dallas in round 1, somehow Edmonton got to round 2, and then even the Western Conference final, throwback to the Gretzky Jets 1.0 days, and then the
Yeah.
ultimate boss is like if we got like
Yeah.
Dallas in round 2 or something, like let's say Abs in round 1, Dallas in round 2, and then round 3 somehow is like, I don't know, the Oilers, and like that's, and then the ultimate boss is Paul Maurice.
I've got something even better for you, and I don't even know if it's possible. Nashville round 1, Vegas round 2, Edmonton round 3, Florida in the final. Bang. There it is. That's the ultimate Jets
rivalries. Like,
Yeah.
I don't even know if that's possible. You just gave me a
I don't think
headache,
so either.
but like that would be pretty dope.
Yeah.
I think both Nashville and Vegas would have to be wildcard teams. Jets would have to be the 1 seed.
Yeah.
And then, and then Vegas wins against someone. I don't even know. Spending too much time on it, but that would just be the ultimate gauntlet of like teams that Jets fans want to see punched into the ground in the playoffs.
Yeah.
But that would be fun. Thank you so much, Jacob, for joining us. This was a blast.
Thanks.
Trade deadline stuff. Yeah, absolutely. You've been on multiple times. We'll have you back on multiple times in the future. On the way out, tell people what you're up to, what you're working on over at the Hockey News.
Working on pretty much anything, articles, videos. We do the podcast. I write for the magazine, kind of everything. Pick up a copy of Future Watch, my favorite issue that we do at the Hockey News. We have our top 100 prospects that we pull one person from each organization, like a scout or someone in the front office, and we basically create a list. It's pretty awesome. I have a feature in there about Adam Gajan, who's remember that guy, the Slovak goalie that came out of nowhere to beat Canada or to go to the quarters against Canada. Yeah, that guy's nuts. Second round pick of the Hawks. Interesting story there. But yeah, you'll find me on thehockeynews.com. My face for radio is planted on there. Hopefully we don't fail miserably because of it. But yeah, then follow me on Twitter at JL Stoller, which is below my name there.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on. Episode 76 of the Level Flight podcast. We talked about the Toffoli deals and some trade deadline stuff. I'm going to put an update at the start of this video because this will be coming out Tuesday. The Jets will have made their debut. But since we're in the predicting mood, Tyler Toffoli hat trick? Anyone? No?
I say
I
he gets a
predict
point
Tyler
tonight.
Toffoli hat trick tonight. I mean, sure.
Okay, I'm gonna go with you, Elliot. He gets a point, I think, and that's maybe a goal. I can get behind a goal too.
I can get behind a power play point. How about that?
He's on the top power play unit. That is actually notable. So I will be watching for that.
Yeah, that's a good
enjoy
bet
the
hedge.
Absolutely. Enjoy the game, everyone. This is Tuesday morning, so you will have already known if they had won or lost. But thanks once again to Jacob for coming on to episode 76. And we will be back Thursday for episode 77. We'll be breaking down the Washington game and the Jets game Wednesday against Nashville. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. From Elliot, Brian, and I, Brian, who's not here, thank you. And we will be back Thursday. Have a good one.
Hey.